Hi, I'm Alex, and my internship was for the Holiday Inn Express in Hayes. So let's get started. So, a little history of the Holiday Inn building that stands today. There was a previous Holiday Inn Express that stood in Hayes, but the one that is standing today is only 8 years old. And about 3 or 4 years ago, the lobby and breakfast area got a huge renovation of making sure things were up to date and looked really nice, and the flooring was upgraded. Um, and within the time of my internship, they actually remodeled the breakfast area too, their breakfast bar. So they kind of remodeled kind of where things went. They remodeled our juice box and a couple other things. So that was kind of cool to see a renovation from beginning to end, and it only happened within a couple of days, so that was kind of cool to watch. An aerial view of the hotel. So I thought you guys might want to see this. So we always referred to things as the long hallway or the short hallway. The long hallway being on the west side of the hotel, and the short being on the east side of the hotel. And that's kind of how we referred to our hallways for our guests to kind of make it a little easier for them. So what is it like working for IHG? First of all, what is IHG? IHG stands for Intercontinental Hotel Group. That Intercontinental is a hotel that that was bought by Bass Company PLC, and it was originally owned by the Pan Am Airlines. And then I think in the 1990s, Bass PLC ended up purchasing it, and that's when Holiday Inn Express and Intercontinental grouped together to form IHG in the 1990s. What was it like working for them? As a company, they were really nice nice to work for. I think it was really cool that they had a rewards program for their employees. I think it was about $60 a night for an employee to stay at certain hotels. I think that was really cool. The only downside is there was a 3-month probationary period. So since I was only there for 4 months, I really didn't get to be part of that really. But it was still awesome that they offered it to employees that were going to stay there for a longer period of time. So what departments was I in? I was trained mostly to be in a front desk associate, but since I wanted to learn a lot about the facility, they let me train in housekeeping as well. So between housekeeping and front desk, what would be my favorite department? Which is a good question, because housekeeping was hard, back-breaking work. You know, you walked away at the end of the day with a reward of knowing that you got something done. Front desk was a different type of hard work. It was still rewarding in the fact that you got to interact with guests, listen to their stories, meet their family. And since I'm a people person, I think that because of that, the front desk was my favorite department, actually. So who runs the place? So the general manager was, and still is, Marjorie Dancel. Holiday Inn Express is in Hayes, is managed by a management company called True North, and they have the Holiday Inn Express in Hayes, and they just built a new property in March of 2018, and that one is called Town Place Suites by Marriott. And so between those two properties, Marjorie was actually the general manager for both. And so since the Town Place was a newer property, she was actually over there a lot more. So that kind of left a lot of the day-to-day things to the front desk manager, which is who I dealt with a lot. And her name is Natasha Cecil. Very nice gal. She had a lot of things on her plate because Marjorie was always over at the other hotel. And it was always hard to track her down sometimes. One minute she would be helping with the front desk, and the other she would be helping housekeeping with inspecting or cleaning a room or something. But very hard worker, but sometimes got to be a little disorganized because she was doing a lot of the things herself. So my experience before starting, I didn't know anything about hotels. I kind of knew a little bit about customer service because I was a customer service representative. I worked in restaurants, I worked in retail, I worked in warehouses, but never had the hotel experience. So starting out at the hotel, there was a lot of terminology like room types and things of that nature, putting things out of order, putting things back in order, all those detailed things that I had to learn, and there was a lot of information to process at the beginning of my internship, most definitely. So since I was trained in two departments, front desk and housekeeping, I thought I'd kind of go over what my duties were in each one. So for front desk, I would have to answer phones, make reservations, take guests' personal information like credit card information, their address, their phone numbers, and emails, making sure that we were being secure in keeping that information in our systems, checking guests in and out. A big one was problem solving for guests, most definitely. Keeping guests' rooms secure by asking for ID with every check-in or remaking of keys. So someone walks up and says, I'm in 201 and I forgot my keys. We'd have to ask them for their ID and make sure that they're authorized to be in that room, because we just don't want to give a room key to any Joe Smith that comes off the street and says that they want in a room. We were a pretty small facility, so front desk was in charge of keeping the lobby clean, stocking the market. At times we had to fold towels when laundry was behind. And then again, we had to take items up to guest rooms when they requested them, like extra towels, a crib, or something of that nature. And then, of course, keeping track of room inventory. We had two different systems, one named Opera and the other Holodex, and they would talk to each other and make sure that our inventory was correct. And so we had to make sure that both of those were working side by side properly. Now, with my housekeeping job, it was a little bit different. It was more task-oriented than front desk. Front desk was more time-oriented. But, so we had to strip beds of dirty linens and rooms of towels. We had to get rid of the trash. We always checked the drawers in the rooms to make sure that guests didn't leave anything behind. We always checked the closets. We had to sanitize all bedroom and bathroom services, sanitize appliances and sinks if there was a sink in the room, stocking items like shampoo, conditioner, shower caps, things of that nature, extra towels, toilet tissue, and then vacuuming and mopping floors. So that was kind of our day-to-day tasks. And so there's a bit of a difference between housekeeping and front desk with that. So one of my worst moments at the hotel, and it was later on, but it was when 3 individuals were in a truck on our property near our dumpster area, and they kept on asking guests for cigarettes and money. And so I felt terrible, but I had to call the police on them. And the police officer came in and she told me that they had a flat tire, and so they were waiting for something to happen so they could get a new one at Walmart. And so I was like, okay, well, if they're just there for that, just let them know that as soon as they can get off our property, just make sure that they are. And then I kept on getting calls later on, about an hour and a half later, asking or telling me that the people that were in that truck were now going through my dumpster. And unfortunately, that time I did have to get the authorities involved again and make sure that they were peacefully removed from our property. I felt so bad. And it was the first time I've ever actually had to do something like that. But to keep my guests from being disturbed, it was a necessary evil. And so I had to learn how to do that, unfortunately. Now, one of my best moments at the hotel, I had this guest that was a motorcycle highway patrolman, and he was super cool. We really bonded over motorcycles. I was raised by my uncle on the back of a Harley, so the guest left for a couple hours and came back and just handed me this bag, and it had this Harley Davidson logo, and he asked me to open it, and so I opened it, and it was this t-shirt, and he goes, that's a t-shirt from the Harley Davidson place, and I wanted you to have it. And he insisted that I have it, and I wear it all the time as a reminder that people and guests can be awesome, and it can be really rewarding working at the front desk and sharing those stories and sharing experiences. Most definitely something that had never really happened with my other retail jobs. Now, this is what I had learned after my internship was done. So from the beginning, where I knew nothing, I worked in food and beverage and everything like that, but I knew nothing about hotels. I've learned so much. I worked how to work with the dual operating systems of Opera and Holodecks, how to interact with guests that have complaints, having them right there in front of you with a complaint right there, then and there, and not leaving until they get an answer was kind of a little bit harder than my customer service job over the phone, that I could just say, hey, I'll figure it out and give you a call back. So it was a little different, and thinking on your toes is a big part of that. I learned how to properly make a bed, except for what I do at home, which was kind of cool. And then I learned how to properly sanitize a room for the next guest. And most importantly, I thought it was the funnest thing to learn. And I know it seems so silly, but I learned how to do the cool little point at the end of the toilet paper. And I was so proud of myself when I was in my first week of housekeeping training that I ended up texting my mom a picture of what I had done, and I was so proud of myself. But overall, with this internship, I learned a lot, and I was really happy that I did it. And even though it was in Hays, I got to learn the hotel experience, kind of figure it out for myself, and it was a great experience worth having. So that's my internship with the Holiday Inn Express in Hays. Thank you.